There's a quiet change happening in the world economy right now, not the kind that shows up as breaking news, not the kind that crashes markets overnight. It's slower than that. And because it's slower, it's actually more powerful. The global power is shifting, not dramatically, but structurally. And when that happens, prices don't stay where they are, jobs don't stay where they are, and the way everyday life feels in the US begins to change, often before anyone can clearly explain why. Most people don't notice power shifts when they begin, they notice them later, when something familiar suddenly feels more expensive, more fragile, or less predictable than it used to. That's where we are now. For decades, the global economy ran on one big assumption: efficiency above all else. Make things where they're cheapest and ship them where they're needed. This keeps costs low, inventories lean, and margins tight. That system worked for many years, until it didn't. What the world learned over the last few years is that efficiency without resilience is fragile, and fragility, once exposed, changes how decisions get made at the highest level. So, countries started asking different questions, not just what's cheapest, but what's safe, what's reliable, and what happens if this relationship breaks down. And those are the questions reshaping the world economy right now. The United States is still at the center of that system. The dollar still matters, US markets still lead, and when uncertainty rises, global money still looks for safety in America. But leadership today comes with a growing price tag. Maintaining economic influence now means investing in domestic production, securing supply chains, and sometimes accepting higher costs in exchange for control. That trade off doesn't stay theoretical for long. It shows up in pricing decisions, in business planning, and eventually in household budgets. This is why the economy can look fine on paper while still feeling heavy in real life. China, however, plays a major role in this shift, but not in the way headlines often frame it. What's happening is separation, selective, strategic separation. Certain industries are being pulled apart: technology, energy inputs, manufacturing components, not because trade failed, but because dependence became risky. But this separation is expensive. When companies build redundancy instead of efficiency, costs rise. When supply chains get longer or more complex, prices rise. When speed and security matter more than optimization, consumers pay the difference. That's why inflation today feels different. It's not just about demand anymore, it's about friction. Inflation is normally loud, but this kind is quiet. It creeps in through higher baseline prices, fewer discounts, slower price drops when costs ease, and a sense that money doesn't stretch the way it used to. On paper, inflation can slow, but in real life, the pressure remains because the global economy is no longer built just to produce goods, it's built to ensure against disruption. In many ways, the American household has become the shock absorber of the global system. When geopolitical tension rises, companies don't raise prices overnight. They adjust quietly, they trim value, they delay relief. Governments, on the other hand, soften the edges and the markets adapt gradually. What's left gets absorbed slowly through monthly bills, rent renewals, interest payments, and everyday decisions that feel just a little tighter than they used to. This isn't collapse, it's compression. And compression is harder to recognize because it doesn't come with a single moment you can point to and say, that's when it changed. That's why the next couple of years matter so much. 2025 is a transition year. 2026 is when these shifts start to feel permanent. By then, we begin to see companies stop treating higher costs as temporary. Supply chains stop adjusting and start settling into new routes, while prices stop floating and start forming a new baseline. This doesn't mean things fall apart. It means the rules have quietly changed, and the people who will struggle most are the ones still living by the old rules. The goal now isn't panic, It's awareness. This is an economy that rewards flexibility more than speed, understanding more than reaction, and preparation more than predictions, because the world reorganizing. And once you see that clearly, the pressure makes more sense and becomes much easier to navigate.